It's got to be hooky, heavy, and we're going analog all the way. That was the directive going into this week's album, the Foo Fighters' Wasting Light. I actually got to see them tour twice on this album, once at a music festival and then once where I live, and that was a weird show. I was on painkillers after a car accident, having fractured my sternum, but I was not going to miss the show. I don't really remember the show a lot, but also I kind of remember it the most out of any Foo Fighters show I've seen. I don't really remember the songs, but I remember kind of Dave Grohl talking a lot and just like little moments here and there. I do remember Everlong because the painkillers had worn off and just the pain was seeping in at a very fast rate. Kind of had to waddle out of the arena. Anyways, I'm Jade and this is Backline Beats Turn It Up Tuesday, where every week I'll give a new album recommendation and a little history behind it. You can check out backlinebeat.com for more music, photos, news, interviews, and more. And if you haven't already, click that subscribe button and help the channel grow. Without further ado, let's get into this week's album. On September 6, 2010, Nate Bendel, Chris Shiflett, Taylor Hawkins, and Pat Smear all gathered at Dave Grohl's house to record the Foo Fighters' 7th album, Wasting Light. They didn't record the album in a fancy studio, which they have their own, but in Grohl's garage, just a regular old garage that needed soundproofing, and they had to construct a makeshift control room where they used TVs, cameras, and mics to communicate with one another. The entire album was recorded to tape using all analog gear, much like last week's album, The White Stripes Elephant. That was actually really important to Grohl, using all analog gear. And it was the same equipment used from his house in Virginia that they recorded There's Nothing Left to Lose in One by One. Another thing from his past that Grohl brought in was producer Butch Vig, who he worked on Nirvana's Nevermind. Recording fully analog didn't come without its pitfalls and challenges. Vig trying to get Grohl to have some digital in there, and he had to basically relearn the entire process after having not done it in so long, having to splice tape and everything. It came a bit to a head when one of the tapes started shredding on the song Miss Misery, and he went to Grohl saying that they should at least back up everything digitally once they've recorded it. But Grohl said, "No, Butch, I don't want any computer in this house at all. Maybe it's a bad reel." So they forged on. During the making of the album, some friends of the band came in and lended a hand, like Husker Du's Bob Mould, who Grohl had originally thought of when he was writing Dear Rosemary. I actually got to see Mould play with the Foo Fighters at one of the shows I said that they were touring this album on, which was kind of cool because they were both playing at the same festival, and I'll probably never see that song sung live as it is on the album again. And it was a good show. Next up was Grohl and Smear's former Nirvana bandmate Chris Novoselic, who jumped in and played bass on I Should Have Known. Fee Waybill of the Tubes came in and sung backup on Miss the Misery. Also making appearances are regulars Jesse Green on the cello and Rami Jaffe on the keys, who now has since become a full member. Speaking of full membership, this was Pat Smear's first full-fledged member album since leaving the band in '97, though he had actually been touring and recording with the Foo Fighters since 2005. On having 3 guitars, Grohl has said, "You have to be careful that it doesn't become a huge fucking mess. But when everyone's playing their thing really well, it sounds perfectly orchestrated." Smear would actually often use a baritone guitar, which sits sonically between like a regular 6-string and a bass, giving the tracks a fuller sonic range. Most of the songs were written about Grohl's life, past and present, and how he kind of reflected upon it at that particular moment when he was making the album, with White Limo being the exception, but more on that later. On April 2nd, 2011, Wasting Light was released, where it debuted at number 1 in 12 different countries. As a part of the promotion for the album, 2 contests were held. One was called This Video Sucks, where fans were encouraged to make music videos for each song that was on the album. And another was to have the band play in their garage, taking obvious inspiration from the fact that it was recorded there. Speaking of garages, the first single was released in a fan's garage. Well, the music video at least. That single being Rope, which was released on February 23rd, 2011, with the video premiering, like I said, in a fan's house a week later on March 1st. While most of the songs were written during the recording process, Rope was actually written while the band was on tour promoting Echo's Silence, Patience, and Grace. The song debuted atop the Billboard rock charts, where it stayed there for 20 weeks, only being dethroned by another single from the album. On the sound, guitarist Chris Shiflett has said, "What my guitar is doing over the bass makes no sense in a way. It does, but you don't know how." The song takes major influence from Led Zeppelin and Rush, with drummer Taylor Hawkins going so far as to say, "I owe Neil Peart a lot of money for the chorus of Rope. I'm splitting my royalties on this song with Neil Peart." The Dave Grohl directed video finds the band in a box as a kind of nod to the claustrophobic garage that they recorded their album in. Also in the video, Grohl trades in his signature guitar, that Trini Lopez /DG335, for a Dave Durnally Flying V. It was all shot on VHS, just like the next song, White Limo, whose video actually was released before Rope was released, but wasn't an official single until after. That happening on March 28th. While the other songs were written about life's reflections, White Limo was written in just 2 minutes, after bassist Nate Mandel wrote to Grohl that not every song has to be Imagine or We Are the World, stating, "I really like it when you write songs that are silly and mean nothing too." Speaking of being silly, the video is a classic, silly Foo Fighters music video. They even brought in Motorhead's Lemmy to be their limo driver in the video, with Dave Grohl directing and kind of just calling direction as they were filming. The video style on VHS was inspired by old, like, Black Flag punk music videos from kind of the early days of music videos, and kind of that kind of crappy quality of them. About a year after debuting, White Limo picked up the Grammy for Best Hard Rock / Metal Performance. Next up was Walk, which was the first single to debut after the release of the album on June 6th. This was actually the song that knocked Rope off the top spot on the Billboard charts. It was another song that was written during Echo's Silence, Patience, and Grace, but just kind of didn't fit. The video is a parody of 1993's Joel Schumacher directed Falling Down. And I'll probably lose a bit of film buff cred for admitting this, but I actually didn't know it was a parody of anything when I first saw the video, and when I just went to watch Falling Down a couple years ago, I'm like, hey, this is the Foo Fighters video, and it's kind of a weird movie to watch when you know it from the Foo Fighters, like, you know, kind of silly video. But you should check it out. It is a good movie. The song is about how Grohl felt the day after Kurt Cobain died, how Grohl wanted to live. On Grohl's affinity for life, Smear has said about Grohl singing the line, "I never want to die. I look at him every time and I think of Kurt. Every single time. Because Kurt was like, I hate myself and I want to die. And that's the oppositeness of them. And I do so love being with life lovers." The song also has the distinction of being the song that Grohl played on his 10th performance on SNL, which marked the most ever. The third official single was actually only a UK release, the song being Arlandria. That dropped on September 18th. 2 music videos were released for the song, a live version from the 2011 iTunes Festival, and another that was released in 2019 that shows a man being chased by a kooky group of characters through a city. The next full wide single release was dropped on November 1st, the song being These Days. The song was actually named the 4th best single of the year by Rolling Stone, with Grohl actually calling it his favorite song he's ever written. Saying in a 2015 interview, "Every night I sing it, I still get choked up." The video was shot during the band's tour of New Zealand and Australia. The final single that came out was Bridge Burning on June 5th, 2012, just as a radio signal but getting the music video treatment in 2019. If you think you knew all the songs of the album, you might want to check yourself, like I actually had to. There's a bonus song called Better Off that was an exclusive release to Japan on the album. In all, Wasting Light may not be the Foo Fighters' biggest seller, but could be considered their most successful in terms of hardware, ending with 5 Grammys of their 6 nominations, only being beat out by Adele and 21 for Album of the Year. And if you're lucky enough to get one of the early CDs, you may have gotten a piece of tape from the master recording. A little thank you to the fans from the Foo Fighters. And actually, this was the last physical CD I ever bought. It kind of went digital for me from there. A little bonus fun fact about myself. So finally, grab it off your shelf or open your favorite music app and turn up this week's album, The Foo Fighters' Wasting Light. I hope you liked it and learned a little something new. Leave a comment letting me know who you'd like me to check out. And if you could click that subscribe button, I'd be super grateful. It really means a lot. Also, check out backlinebeat.com. Lots of concert galleries and other recommendations and interviews. And if you'd like to help out the site a little bit more, and you can, there's links in the description box below for how you can do that, like Patreon or PayPal or what have you. Thanks, and have yourself a good one.